Chosen one, there is a reason your silence unsettles them. There is a reason people grow uncomfortable, anxious, even fearful when you stop explaining yourself, stop reacting, and stop lowering your spirit to meet their noise. What they feel is not distance, it is power. Allah does not strengthen His chosen servants in chaos. He fortifies them in silence, where patience replaces impulse, faith replaces fear, and reliance on Him becomes unshakable. While they speak endlessly, you are being built quietly. While they assume you are weak, Allah is hardening your soul with sabr and sharpening your heart with wisdom. Your silence is not absence, it is obedience. It is the sign that Allah is working on you in ways no human can interrupt. So, if you've been wondering why you've been called to step back, to speak less, to endure more, this message is for you. Stay with me, because these lessons will reveal why they fear your silence and how Allah is strengthening you inside it. Chosen one, when Allah truly begins to elevate you, He does not start by changing your surroundings. He starts by reshaping your inner dependency, and one of the first chains He breaks is your need to be approved, understood, validated, or applauded by people, because as long as your peace depends on human acceptance, your strength can always be manipulated, and this is why Allah leads you into silence, a silence where you stop explaining yourself, stop correcting every misunderstanding, stop chasing people who refuse to see your heart. And at first, this silence feels uncomfortable, even painful, because your nafs was once trained to seek reassurance through reactions, praise, and agreement. But Allah is too merciful to let His chosen one remain enslaved to opinions that change with mood, benefit, and convenience. So He strengthens you by withdrawing the desire to be liked, replacing it with the need to be sincere. And this transformation terrifies people because they were used to controlling you through approval and withdrawal, through validation and silence, through praise and criticism. But now your quiet presence tells them they no longer have access to your self-worth, because it has been relocated to Allah alone. And when you stop speaking to defend yourself, Allah speaks for you through time, through exposure, through shifts you never planned, and through peace that doesn't crack under judgment. And those who once questioned your worth begin to feel uneasy, not because you proved them wrong, but because you no longer need to. And this is the true strength Allah builds in silence, an inner certainty that does not rise with compliments or fall with insults, a calm dignity that does not beg to be seen, and a heart that knows even if the entire world misunderstands you, Allah understands you completely, and that is enough, more than enough, to stand firm, to walk forward, and to remain unshaken while others crumble trying to earn what you have already surrendered for the sake of Allah. Chosen one, understand this deeply. Not everyone who speaks to you is speaking for connection. Many are speaking to drain, provoke, distract, or control. And Allah, in His wisdom, teaches you silence as a form of protection, because every argument, explanation, emotional reaction, and forced conversation once gave people access to your spiritual and emotional energy, leaving you exhausted while they remained unchanged. And this is why Allah strengthens you by teaching you to withdraw without guilt, to remain quiet without fear, and to observe without engaging. And at first, this feels unnatural because you were taught that silence is weakness, but Allah reveals to you that silence is sovereignty, a quiet declaration that your energy is no longer public property. And this unsettles people because they can feel the door has closed, the reactions have stopped, the emotional supply has ended, and now they are left with nothing to feed on. And Allah uses this separation to refill you, to restore your clarity, to deepen your connection with Him, while those who once thrived on your responses grow restless and exposed. Because silence forces intentions to surface, and in that stillness, Allah trains you to protect your heart, your focus, and your iman, showing you that not every voice deserves an answer, not every accusation deserves defense, and not every presence deserves access. And when you finally accept this lesson, your peace becomes guarded, your strength becomes steady, and your silence becomes a shield no manipulation can penetrate, because Allah Himself stands between you and those who once consumed what you never should have given away. Chosen one, Allah has never built His strongest servants in crowds, noise, or constant attention, but in quiet places, ere the heart is stripped of distractions and the soul is forced to confront its true intentions, because strength that depends on applause collapses when silence arrives. And Allah does not allow His chosen ones to rise on fragile foundations, so He removes you from familiar voices, limits your circle, slows your life, and places you in seasons where very few understand you, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because in quiet places, sincerity is tested, patience is refined, and reliance on Allah becomes real rather than spoken. And while others assume you are being forgotten, Allah is training you to stand alone with Him, to worship without witnesses, to remain obedient without recognition, and to trust His plan without constant reassurance. And this terrifies people later, because when you emerge from that quiet season, you are no longer dependent on validation, direction, or emotional support from creation. Having learned to draw strength directly from the Creator, and what they cannot understand is that the silence they thought weakened you actually hardened your faith, sharpened your discipline, and aligned your heart so deeply with Allah that storms no longer distract you, delays no longer break you, and isolation no longer frightens you, because you know now that the quiet place was never abandonment. It was the training ground where Allah prepared you for responsibilities that noise could never sustain and crowds could never protect. Chosen one, there is a painful but necessary truth Allah allows you to discover through silence, and that truth is this: not every one who had access to your voice ever deserved it. Because when you stop explaining yourself, stop reaching out, stop trying to fix misunderstandings, and stop pouring words into people who never truly listened, Allah begins to separate sincerity from convenience, and silence becomes the mirror that exposes hearts, because those who valued you only for what you gave, how you made them feel, or how you defended yourself for their comfort, will suddenly feel offended, abandoned, or angry, while those who truly respected your soul will approach you with patience, humility, and concern. And this distinction is something Allah does not teach through lectures or advice, but through lived experience, because silence removes performance, removes emotional labor, and removes forced connection, leaving only intention behind. And at first this revelation hurts deeply, because you realize how many conversations were one-sided, how many explanations were demanded but never appreciated, and how often your voice was taken for granted rather than honored. But Allah strengthens you by allowing this grief to mature into wisdom, teaching you that your words are not a public service, your explanations are not obligations, and your emotional presence is not something people are entitled to, And this is why silence becomes sacred, because it protects what is valuable, and those who never deserved your voice begin to expose themselves through entitlement, guilt-tripping, manipulation, or sudden disappearance, while Allah gently shows you that losing access to certain people is not loss at all, but divine protection, because anyone who only values you when you are loud, available, and accommodating was never meant to walk with you into the next level. Allah is preparing for you, and as this lesson settles into your heart, you stop grieving who left and start thanking Allah for what was revealed, because silence did what words never could. It clarified, purified, and guarded your dignity, teaching you that your voice carries weight and not everyone is worthy of hearing it, especially when Allah is elevating you into a season where every word, every presence, and every connection must be aligned with truth, respect, and sincere intention. Chosen one, there is a sacred power in silence that only those Allah strengthens can truly understand, because when you refrain from defending yourself, from arguing your truth, from trying to prove your worth, or from seeking validation from those who have wronged, misunderstood, or betrayed you, you are not surrendering out of weakness. You are surrendering out of unwavering trust in Allah's perfect justice. And this is a trust that surpasses human comprehension, because you are acknowledging that every injustice, every betrayal, every lie spoken against you, every plan devised in darkness, and every hurt inflicted by others is already under the control of the Most Merciful. And while the world demands that you speak, explain, and defend, Allah calls you to restraint, to patience, and to reliance on Him alone. And this is where the heart begins to transform, because what was once urgent in human eyes becomes meaningless in the light of divine decree, and what was once unbearable becomes a catalyst for elevation. And in this quiet, your soul begins to understand that justice is not always immediate, it is not always visible, and it is rarely predictable, but it is always absolute, perfect, and aligned with what is truly best for you. And those who have tried to undermine you, harm you, or silence you are left unsettled, uneasy, and fearful, because they sense a power that does not belong to you, but to Allah within you. And this power cannot be bargained with, manipulated, or controlled. And it terrifies them because your silence carries weight, it carries witness, and it carries the promise of divine reckoning. And in that same silence, Allah strengthens you by allowing the heat of injustice to refine your patience, the sting of betrayal to deepen your sincerity, and the absence of human approval to sharpen your reliance on Him. And as each moment of quiet passes, your heart learns that speaking is not always a necessity, defending is not always a requirement, and proving your value is not your duty, because Allah alone sees the hidden intentions, the whispered schemes, and the secret struggles of every soul, and His knowledge of your truth is complete, perfect, and sufficient. And when you accept this, your silence becomes an act of worship, a demonstration of faith, and a declaration that your trust in Allah is stronger than any fear, any anger, or any injustice that surrounds you. And this trust is not passive. It is active, transformative, and fierce, because it allows Allah to move on your behalf in ways your hands never could, in ways your words never could, and in ways your plans never could. And as you continue in this sacred silence, you begin to notice the subtle ways Allah responds. Doors open that were once closed, hearts soften that were once hardened, and situations shift in ways that appear miraculous, yet are natural to the one who measures every intention and judges every action. And this is why silence is terrifying to those who thrive on chaos, gossip, and manipulation, because they see you unmoved, undistracted, and untouchable by their schemes. Yet they cannot perceive the source of your strength, which is not in what I'll withhold from them, but in what you place in Allah's hands, knowing fully that He is the ultimate judge, the ultimate protector, and the ultimate avenger for all that has been wronged or denied. And through this silence, your heart grows resilient, your spirit grows unshakable, and your faith grows unbreakable, because when you stop demanding justice from humans and begin receiving it from Allah, you are elevated beyond their comprehension. And this elevation is subtle, quiet, and powerful, like the calm before a storm that has already been written. And your silence is the bridge between patience and reward, restraint and liberation, trust and victory. And in this sacred process, you begin to see that every delay, every test, every moment of being misunderstood or overlooked is actually a mercy, a preparation, and a guarantee that when Allah finally enacts His justice, it will not be partial, it will not be delayed unnecessarily, and it will be far greater than what you could have demanded or imagined. And so, chosen one, continue in silence, not out of fear, not out of weakness, but out of complete reliance, complete surrender, and complete trust in Allah's perfect justice, knowing that your patience will not be wasted, your quiet endurance will not go unseen, and your faith will be rewarded in ways so profound that the world itself will stand in awe of what Allah has done quietly, invisibly, and powerfully in your life. Chosen one, Allah's wisdom is beyond comprehension, and one of the most profound ways He strengthens His chosen servants is through silence, a silence that humbles the ego while simultaneously elevating the heart, a silence that strips away pride, impatience, and the need to be noticed, understood, or applauded, and in that same quiet builds fortitude, clarity, and connection with Him that cannot be attained in noise or distraction, for the world often measures success, validation, and worth through recognition, attention, and reaction. But Allah measures His servants by sincerity, restraint, and reliance. And so He allows you to experience seasons of stillness where words are few, interactions are minimal, and the world seems to misunderstand or overlook you. And though at first this silence can feel isolating, even painful, it is a sacred mechanism through which Allah dismantles the false reliance on human affirmation, revealing how much of your energy, your joy, and your peace was previously tethered to the opinions of others. And in the absence of those voices, your soul is forced to turn inward, to confront its weaknesses, its intentions, and its attachment to the fleeting satisfaction of worldly approval. And as your ego is humbled, your spirit is elevated, because you begin to recognize that the presence of Allah within you is far more sustaining than any attention or recognition from creation. And this process is deliberate, chosen, and tailored by the most merciful. Because those who are truly destined to rise above the trials of this world cannot carry the weight of pride, impatience, or reliance on external validation, and Allah knows that only through silence can the heart learn to find satisfaction in His ADs. Acceptance alone, and this is why the very people who once sought to provoke, manipulate, or control you through words, drama, or expectation begin to feel unsettled, because your lack of reaction signals a strength they cannot measure, a depth they cannot touch, and a resolve that is being built entirely by Allah, away from distraction, away from influence, and away from human interference. And in this quiet, your connection to Him deepens, your intuition sharpens, and your patience grows, because you begin to act, speak, and respond not from impulse, fear, or desire for approval, but from intention, clarity, and divine guidance. And as this unfolds, you notice that the trials, misunderstandings, and delays you once resented were never punishments but lessons. For in forcing you into silence, Allah is teaching you humility, discipline, and restraint, while simultaneously preparing you for elevation, for moments where your words will carry authority, your presence will command respect, and your actions will inspire others in ways that could never have been possible if you were still tied to validation, reaction, or human expectation. And those who once doubted you, mocked you, or tried to diminish you will now witness the quiet power that grows from obedience to Allah, the invincible inner strength forged in isolation, and the serene confidence born from trusting Him alone. And in this sacred interplay of humility and elevation, you learn that silence is not a void, but a vessel, a workshop for the soul where character is refined, faith is solidified, and destiny is prepared. With precision, patience, and perfection, and ultimately, chosen one, you understand that Allah's methods are flawless, His timing is perfect, and His wisdom infinite. For the silence that once felt like emptiness is actually a garden of growth, a forge of resilience, and a sanctuary where your spirit is being elevated beyond the reach of those who sought to define you, manipulate you, or diminish you. And when you emerge from this season, your humility will remain intact, your strength will be undeniable, your heart will be anchored in Him, and those who underestimated you will realize that the quiet you maintained was never a weakness. It was the divine preparation for the unstoppable, unshakable, and elevated version of yourself that Allah intended you to become. And in this sacred silence, the world finally begins to understand that when Allah builds in quiet, He builds for eternity, and no human voice, opinion, or opposition can diminish what He has perfected within you. Chosen one, understand this truth deeply. Silence is one of the clearest signs that Allah is elevating you beyond the level of ordinary human understanding, because when you choose not to react, not to explain, not to argue, and not to seek validation, you are demonstrating a level of spiritual maturity that many will never reach, a maturity that comes not from knowledge alone, but from experience, patience, and deep reliance on Allah. And this maturity is forged in the crucible of trials, isolation, and moments where the world demanded that you speak, defend, or prove yourself, yet you resisted. Owing that true strength is measured not by words or reactions, but by the steadiness of the heart, the calmness of the soul, and the trust that Allah's timing and judgment are perfect, and those around you, particularly those who have sought to provoke, manipulate, or belittle you, feel an invisible weight in your silence, because they sense the shift, they sense that your worth, your dignity, and your peace are no longer within their control. And this is what terrifies them, for they are accustomed to measuring others by reaction, emotion, and chaos. And when those measures fail, they are left disoriented, powerless, and fearful of a presence they no longer understand. And Allah, in His infinite wisdom, strengthens you in this silence by allowing you to rise above superficial conflicts by teaching you that wisdom is often found in restraint, that victory is often achieved without confrontation, and that power is not always in being heard, but in being anchored in faith, clarity, and divine purpose. And as this spiritual maturity settles within you, you begin to act and speak only when it is necessary, only when it aligns with Allah's guidance, and only when it contributes to righteousness, and in doing so, your life becomes a quiet testament to the truth that maturity is not shown in the loudness of one's voice or the frequency of one's defenses, but in the ability to remain composed, centered, and guided by the unseen hand of Allah, even when the world attempts to provoke chaos around you. And this silent strength reshapes every interaction, revealing who truly respects you, who is sincere in their intentions, and who is only drawn to you for personal gain or entertainment. And in this revelation, you see that the people who once demanded your explanation, your defense, or your energy were never meant to walk with you at the level Allah has prepared. And as you embrace this reality, your heart becomes more selective, your energy more guarded, and your trust more refined. Because you have learned that not every opinion deserves response, not every provocation deserves reaction, and not every misunderstanding requires clarification. And in this wisdom, your silence no longer feels like restraint, but like liberation, a liberation that signals to the world and to yourself that you have transcended the need for constant validation, that your strength is now internal rather than external, and that your spiritual maturity is a fortress built in quiet moments, private struggles, and surrendered trust to Allah. And those who once underestimated you, mocked your restraint, or tried to manipulate your reactions, now feel a subtle but undeniable tension in your presence. Because your silence communicates more than words ever could. It communicates power, peace, understanding, and unshakable reliance on the one who sees all things, knows all hearts, and guides all souls. And this realization, chosen one, is the essence of spiritual maturity, for you no longer measure yourself by human standards, you no longer seek approval from flawed sources, and you no longer allow chaos or opinion to dictate your peace, because in silence, Allah has elevated you, purified you, and anchored your soul in a way that commands respect, demands awe, and inspires those who are ready to recognize true spiritual strength. And when you walk through the world in this silence, people may not understand your restraint, but Allah understands your heart completely, and that is the ultimate measure of growth, wisdom, and spiritual maturity. Chosen one of the greatest gifts Allah grants to His servants is the ability to truly hear Him, and this hearing is not with the ears alone, but with the heart, the soul, and the deepest levels of awareness. And silence is the divine vessel through which this gift is delivered, because when the world is loud, full of opinions, distractions, and demands for reaction, it is impossible for a heart to discern the subtle whispers of guidance that come directly from Allah. And this is why He deliberately teaches His chosen ones the art of silence, the patience of stillness, and the strength of waiting, because only in the absence of noise can the soul learn to recognize the signs, the nudges, and the quiet instructions that lead to clarity, protection, and elevation. And at first, silence can feel unbearable, as if the world is abandoning you, as if nothing is happening, or as if the delay is punishment. But Allah knows that every moment of stillness is an investment in your spiritual perception, in your ability to respond to His will with precision, wisdom, and unwavering faith. And in this sacred quiet, Your heart begins to distinguish between what is urgent and what is essential, between what is fleeting and what is eternal, between the voices of distraction and the guidance of the most merciful. And as you remain steadfast, your senses sharpen, your intuition deepens, and your connection with Allah becomes palpable, because He is speaking to you in ways that no one else can, in subtle signs, in feelings that cannot be ignored, in opportunities that appear at the exact moment they are meant to, and in the answers to prayers that were once forgotten, overlooked, or postponed. And those who are unaware of this divine process will see your silence as weakness, confusion, or hesitation. But Allah sees your heart, your obedience, and your willingness to rely on Him alone. And this is what strengthens you internally in ways that words, explanations, or reactions never could, because every time you resist the urge to justify, argue, or seek human validation, you are creating space for Allah's wisdom to enter your mind, your decisions, and your soul. And this sacred listening becomes a form of worship, a dialogue between your heart and the Creator, an alignment with destiny that cannot be achieved through noise, force, or haste. And as your awareness grows, you begin to recognize patterns, understand lessons, and make choices that are aligned with divine decree rather than emotional impulse, social pressure, or fleeting desire. And in doing so, your life becomes a living testament to the power of surrender, patience, and attentiveness to Allah's signs. Because what appears as quiet waiting to the world is actually active preparation, spiritual sharpening, and unseen guidance being embedded into your very being, and the challenges, the delays, and the misunderstandings that once frustrated you now serve as training grounds, as exercises in discernment, as opportunities to cultivate a heart that hears what others miss, sees what others overlook, and trusts what others doubt. And in this process, you learn that silence is not absence, inactivity, or weakness. It is presence, receptivity, and profound strength. Because every pause, every moment of restraint, every refusal to react unnecessarily allows Allah to plant seeds of guidance, clarity, and foresight within you. And when the time comes to act, to speak, or to make a decision, you move with confidence, certainty, and alignment, because the answers have already been given, the paths have already been illuminated, and the divine timing has already been perfected. And those who once doubted you, misjudged you, or tried to provoke, you will witness the unmistakable wisdom and precision that comes only from those who have learned to listen to Allah in silence. And at this stage, your silence becomes a signal to the world that you are no longer living by reaction, opinion, or external influence, but by divine guidance, and the clarity, peace, and success that follow are the natural results of a soul trained in stillness, obedience, and attentiveness to the One who sees all things, knows all things, and guides all things. And this lesson, chosen one, is one of the highest forms of preparation. For those who can hear Allah clearly in silence will never be lost, misled, or overwhelmed by the noise of this world, and their lives will bear witness to the unparalleled power, wisdom, and mercy of Allah, who speaks to hearts that are still, who guides those who wait, and who elevates those who listen with patience, humility, and unwavering trust. And this is why silence is not empty. It is the conduit of divine strategy, the teacher of spiritual perception, and the foundation upon which every step of your elevated destiny is being built. one quiet moment at a time. Chosen one, there is a subtle but undeniable power in your silence, a power that many fail to recognize because the world has conditioned people to equate speaking with action, defending with strength, and responding with control. But Allah teaches His chosen servants that true authority, wisdom, and discernment often emerge in stillness, because when you choose not to react, not to justify, not to engage with every provocation, misunderstanding, or manipulation, you are allowing a divine process to unfold, one in which the hearts of others are revealed through their own words, actions, and intentions, and what they attempt to conceal through charm, deception, or influence comes to light simply because there is no response from you to obscure the truth. And this is why those who wish to exploit, control, or mislead you feel uneasy in your quietness, because they sense that their schemes no longer have cover, that their manipulations are no longer effective, and that the truth is beginning to surface through the natural course of exposure. And Allah strengthens you in this silence by teaching you that you do not need to force revelation or confront falsehoods directly, for when you remain composed, patient, and obedient, the reality of every person's heart will eventually emerge on its own, and the timing, nature, and method of this exposure are perfectly orchestrated by the most wise, most just, and most merciful. And in this sacred stillness, you begin to notice patterns, recognize hidden motives, and understand the layers of intention behind every word spoken and wry action taken against you, and what once seemed confusing, overwhelming, or unfair now becomes clear, because silence functions as both shield and lens. It protects your energy from unnecessary expenditure, while simultaneously magnifying the truth that would otherwise remain concealed by noise, distraction, or reaction, and the people who once thrived on your engagement, your explanations, or your emotional investment begin to reveal themselves fully, whether through impatience, frustration, gossip, subtle hostility, or the inability to manage the absence of your reactions. And what they cannot see is that this is exactly what Allah intended, because your silence is not a passive act, but an active form of faith, strategy, and spiritual elevation, a divine mechanism through which He teaches you discernment, fortitude, and reliance on Him, while simultaneously allowing others to demonstrate their character without interference. And as you continue in this sacred quiet, you realize that not everyone deserves your trust, not every relationship is meant to endure, and not every engagement requires participation, because some hearts are only drawn to you for personal gain, envy, or convenience. And Allah, in His infinite mercy, has shielded you from unnecessary entanglements, allowing their intentions to expose themselves naturally, while your heart, mind, and spirit remain anchored in clarity, patience, and divine guidance. And this exposure is itself a form of protection, for knowing the truth about others prevents you from being deceived, manipulated, or drawn into conflict that would disrupt your path, your growth, or your peace. And the beauty of this process is that it unfolds without effort from your side. Your silence is sufficient, your restraint is sufficient, and your obedience to Allah is sufficient to reveal every hidden reality at exactly the right time. And as this realization deepens, you see that silence is not emptiness, avoidance, or weakness. It is a manifestation of wisdom, a tool of divine justice, and a sign of spiritual elevation, because only those whose hearts are aligned with Allah, whose intentions are sincere, and whose faith is firm can harness silence in this way, allowing it to act as a mirror, a shield, and a revealer all at once. And as you observe the world through this lens, you begin to appreciate the extraordinary subtlety of Allah's guidance, for He teaches you that words are not always necessary, confrontations are not always required, and actions are not always the measure of strength, because the exposure of true intentions through your silence is often more powerful than any argument, more precise than any explanation, and more enduring than any reaction. And those who sought to obscure themselves, manipulate the truth, or take advantage of your energy find themselves unmasked, their motives transparent, and their strategies ineffective. And all of this unfolds while you remain composed, patient, and obedient, witnessing the divine justice of Allah at work, knowing that He has ordained every detail perfectly, and that the silence He teaches is not merely absence, but presence, the presence of clarity, wisdom, discernment, and the unshakable certainty that only the Creator can provide. And this is why your silence terrifies them, not because you have power in the world, but because the One who has prepared you, guided you, and strengthened you in the quiet holds ultimate authority. And your stillness is a reflection of that alignment, a declaration of divine protection, and a proof that when Allah equips a chosen servant with patience, restraint, and awareness, no deception can endure, no malice can persist, and no hidden agenda can survive the light of truth that flows quietly through faith, obedience, and surrendered silence. And in this sacred process, you come to understand that silence is not an absence of strength. It is the purest manifestation of divine wisdom, the most precise instrument of discernment, and the ultimate signal that those who are truly aligned with Allah will always be revealed, while those who are not will expose themselves in their own time, by their own actions, and in ways that no words from you could ever accomplish. And this is the power, the protection, and the profound lesson of silence for the chosen ones. It is a spiritual weapon, a divine teacher, and a mirror in which the intentions of all are eventually reflected with perfect clarity. Chosen one, understand this truth deeply. The greatest destinies, the most powerful impacts, the lives that shake the world and inspire generations are not forged in noise, in attention, seeking, or in constant display, but in quiet obedience to Allah, in patient submission to His will, and in the unas, assuming acts of worship, diligence, and trust that no human eyes may ever witness. And it is in this sacred silence that Allah shapes the chosen ones for roles that require precision, wisdom, and unshakable faith, because loudness, recognition, and worldly approval can never replace divine preparation, and those who seek fame, attention, or immediate acknowledgement often fall short of their potential because they prioritize human praise over divine purpose. Yet you, chosen one, are being prepared in quiet, unseen moments, in prayers whispered in the darkness, in nights spent in sincerity, in decisions made with integrity despite no one observing, and in patience exercised in trials that test every fiber of your heart, mind, and soul. And these acts of quiet obedience accumulate into spiritual power, character, and clarity that no noise, distraction, or human interference can replicate. And Allah, in His infinite wisdom, is orchestrating every detail of your journey, aligning your steps, refining your intentions, and strengthening your resilience so that when the time comes for your destiny to manifest, it will arrive with undeniable authority, impact, and visibility, leaving no room for doubt about its divine origin. And while the world measures success by loud declarations, visible achievements, and external recognition, Allah measures the heart, the consistency of faith, the depth of trust, and the patience exercised in obedience without reward. And it is precisely this quiet obedience that prepares you for extraordinary outcomes, because He does not elevate the one who seeks validation in public, but the one who seeks Him in private. And in this process, your silence becomes a source of strength, protection, and unseen influence, because while you appear still to the world, Allah is moving on your behalf in ways that surpass imagination, aligning circumstances, opening doors, and orchestrating encounters that will reveal the magnitude of your destiny in perfect timing. And those who once underestimated you, mocked your restraint, or failed to see your value, will stand astonished when the results of your quiet obedience manifest, not as mere coincidence, but as the culmination of divine planning, preparation, and perfection. And you will realize that every moment spent in patience, humility, prayer, and surrender was essential to building the foundation for the life Allah has destined for you, a life that will be loud, impactful, and undeniable, precisely because it was first prepared in quiet, unseen, and deliberate obedience. And this is why the chosen ones are often misunderstood, overlooked, or underestimated during their preparation, because the world cannot recognize the power that is cultivated in private, nor can it understand the patience required to remain faithful when nothing seems to happen. Yet Allah's wisdom ensures that every trial, every delay, every season of apparent inactivity is purposeful, refining you, protecting you, and equipping you for a destiny that will shake hearts, shift realities, and illuminate paths for countless others. And in this, you learn that loudness in the world is fleeting, visible to all but temporary. Why? While loudness in destiny is earned through obedience, sacrifice, and trust, and it is eternal, impactful, and divinely sanctioned. And the key to reaching this level is to remain steadfast in your quiet obedience, to resist the urge to react, to pursue recognition, or to force outcomes, because every whisper of patience, every moment of sincere prayer, every act of integrity, and every decision made in alignment with Allah's will is being counted, recorded, and amplified in ways that will only become visible at the appointed time. And when your loud destiny finally arrives, it will speak volumes about the power of faith, the beauty of trust, and the unmatched strength of a heart aligned with Allah. And the world will witness a life that was shaped in silence but destined to roar, a testament to the truth that Allah's chosen servants are not defined by human observation or applause, but by their commitment to Him, their consistency in obedience, and their unwavering patience in preparation. And this, chosen one, is the ultimate lesson, that quiet obedience is not emptiness, weakness, or insignificance. It is the sacred forge in which destinies are perfected, and when the time comes, the outcomes will be so powerful, so undeniable, and so transformative that every whispered prayer, every private act of devotion, and every moment of silent perseverance will shine as proof that Allah prepares His greatest servants in the quietest places for the loudest, most impactful, and most unforgettable purposes. As we come to the end of these lessons, chosen one, take a deep moment to reflect. Every moment of silence you maintained, every trial you endured, every delay you experienced, and every unseen struggle was not meaningless. It was preparation. Allah has been shaping you in ways the world cannot understand, teaching you patience, humility, discernment, and unwavering reliance on Him. Your silence is not weakness, it is strength. Your restraint is not emptiness, it is power. Every quiet moment has been building a foundation for a destiny so profound, so impactful, and so divinely orchestrated that when it unfolds, the world will witness what only Allah could have prepared. Remember, those who misunderstand, those who doubt, and those who sought to test you were never the measure of your worth. Allah alone knows your value, your struggle, and your heart. Keep walking in this sacred silence, for it is the signal of spiritual maturity, the shield that protects your energy, and the bridge that connects you to the guidance, wisdom, and destiny Allah has reserved for you. The people around you may fear your stillness, may question your choices, or may try to provoke a reaction, but let them, for their responses only confirm the elevation that Allah has already granted you. Remain steadfast, remain patient, remain connected to Allah, and trust that every quiet moment is multiplying your reward, clarifying your path, and preparing you for the greatness that is already written in your destiny. Your silence, chosen one, is your power, your peace, and your signal that Allah's plan is in motion, and when the time comes, your light will shine so brightly, your purpose will be so clear, and your impact so undeniable that the world will finally understand that those whom Allah strengthens in silence are the ones who change destinies, inspire hearts, and leave a legacy that cannot be ignored. So hold on to your trust, embrace your quiet strength, and step forward with the confidence that Allah is not only aware of you, but is actively preparing you for a life, a purpose, and a legacy that is greater than you have ever imagined. This is your time, your journey, your destiny, and it is already in the hands of the most wise, the most merciful, and the